According to General Hospital spoilers, Willow Tate may be planning a cabin getaway in the near future. Will Willow flee with the kids after things blow out with Drew Kane? Willow had a fascinating talk with Isaiah Gannon on the July 16th episode of General Hospital. Willow overheard Isaiah's phone call regarding all of the necessary repairs, and he said that the cabin Lucky Spencer gifted him was turning into a money trap. Despite this, Isaiah insisted on keeping the cottage as a getaway, and possibly passing it down to any children he may have in the future. Was there a deeper meaning to Isaiah and Willow's cabin discussion? What if Willow uses that cabin as her own retreat at some point? Willow's life has gone apart, and it will only get worse from here. Drew intends to make Michael Corinthos appear to be an opioid addict with the help of Portia Robinson, but if his scheme is discovered, it may backfire. Of course, Willow is about to discover that Drew and Nina Reeves were sleeping together behind her back once. Willow may discover that the children are all she has left when her relationship with Drew fails. Willow might be able to snatch Wiley and Amelia Corinthos if she makes a bold move. Willow wouldn't have to do much investigation to determine the location of Isaiah's cabin. Willow may flee and end up hiding with the kids while she decides what to do next. It's even feasible that Isaiah, who has become a good buddy and understands Willow's troubles, may help. Whatever the case, there could be a purpose for Willow and Isaiah's extended cabin-related talk. It appears to be setting the framework for something, so we'll see if Willow can secure a cabin hideout down the road. According to General Hospital spoilers, remaining single is the best thing for her health. However, there is widespread conjecture that Willow may hook up with Isaiah next. In fact, some people would love to witness it because they believe Willow should stay away from Drew. Is Willow going to hook up with Isaiah next? They are almost the same age, although Isaiah does not appear to be Willow's father. This character really needs his redemption arc. That is, if Willow stays in the fictitious town of Port Charles any longer. Of course, the internet had a lot to say about the situation. Some even commented, Willow and her psychotic damsel in distress self should stay single. Willow has never been solo since she initially started dating Chase. Then she's been a monkey swinging between guys ever since. I've been rooting for Isaiah and Elizabeth for a long time. I'd like to see them in a slow burn friends to lovers workplace romance. What's next for Willow? Another fan of the show wrote, I'm seeing that Willow keeps confiding in Isaiah. He keeps listening to her crazy and not offering an opinion. She interprets it as agreement and calls him to the stand in the custody hearing. He then spills about all of her crazy, beginning with her fantasy that her, Drew, and the children become a new family with Michael completely out of the equation, her blaming Michael for the court's decision, and how she used the children as bargaining. She doesn't need another rescuing man storyline. She doesn't need anybody else in her extremely sick cheerleading team to validate her personality and conduct. Ship her off. General Hospital airs weekdays on ABC. Check the local listings for times. For the time being, please share your ideas in the comments box below. Robert welcomes Sasha, Daisy and Jason to his home. She removes the infant to change her diaper and instructs the males to behave. Jason offers to leave. Robert thanks him. Decades ago, Jason came through for Robin. He has now stepped up to support his other daughter, and he is grateful. Jason expresses his pride that Michael allowed Sasha to leave. Sasha returns, pleased to find that no blows were exchanged. Daisy is asleep. Jason announces that he needs to catch a flight. Sasha walks him out, and Robert wishes him safe travels. Outside, Sasha tells Jason she is no longer terrified. He's glad, and she's a good mother. She bursts into tears, stating she feels as if she has lost a security blanket. He repeats that she would be okay, and she kisses his cheek goodbye. Sasha returns to Robert and expresses how much it meant to her to know she had a father to call on when she needed help. She brings the baby in to see him, and they discuss how sweet she is. Carly meets Anna at her workplace. The chief asks her about Vaughn. Carly claims he and Joss had seen each other only a few times and had a public breakup. According to Anna, it does not appear to be over. She reveals that Emma is implicated in this, and her alarms have been sounding. Anna informs her about interrupting Emma's date and Vaughn's reconciliation with Joss. Emma didn't appear disturbed. Carly is unsure what the objective of this chat is. She knows her daughter is still mourning Dex. Anna claims she's seeking for an outlet since she's obsessed with proving Cyrus killed him. That is news to Carly. At the very least, Cyrus is presumed dead. She believes Joss is just pouring herself into something with Vaughn as a distraction. Carly discusses her last-minute Easter Island trip, and how much she seemed transformed after returning. Anna points out that this is around the time she started seeing Vaughn. Carly wonders if she should be worried. She understands that approaching Joss will only make her dig her heels in. Vaughn and Joss head to the airport to intercept the courier. He instructs her to get into position. Dante is checking surveillance video and notices Vaughn and Joss. He wonders what they're up to. When the woman checks in, Vaughn runs into her. As he flirts with her, Joss passes by and places a tracker in her bag. The woman boarded her airplane. Vaughn and Joss sit down to examine the tracker. They notice she's heading for France. Dante phones Anna and says Vaughn looks like a regular WSB. He's working alongside Joss. As Jason sits at the airport, he is taken aback when a woman who looks exactly like Britt walks past him to board a plane. At Crimson, Nina is overjoyed to see Albrecht. Liesel knows she needs her since Willow's life is falling apart. Willow appears in time to hear this. Albrecht is well aware of her divorce and subsequent loss of custody. She wonders how a dedicated mother could accomplish such a feat. Willow accuses Michael. She explains that he has changed and that she has developed feelings for Drew. Michael is punishing her for that. Albrecht believes she should have waited until her marriage ended before moving in with Drew. They discuss how awful things went in court, and Willow laments that they were not treated fairly. Nina announces that Sasha has fled the country with Daisy. She tells Willow that Michael will stay behind with the other youngsters. She also mentions that there have been threats on the baby. Albrecht calls that sick. Willow had to pour some water for herself. She smirks as she turns away. She has to get to work and offers her mother a hug, thanking her for being a source of comfort. Albrecht slams the door and declares that Willow has a serious problem. She spotted Willow's devilish smile. Nina claims Willow has changed since losing the children. Albrecht believes she's being careless. Nina blames Drew for that. Liesel insists that they break the tie immediately. Nina is afraid she may lose her daughter. She says that seeing Willow and Drew together makes her skin crawl. Liesel is confident he has a skeleton in his closet that can be used as leverage. Willow contacts Michael at GH to express her condolences for the loss of Sasha and Daisy. But now that he understands how terrible that is, he may be able to find a way to compromise with her. Portia storms into Curtis' office and demands that the situation be resolved immediately. Drew will no longer be able to control them. She is going to the medical board to confess and accept the penalty. She could lose her license. He mentions that there could potentially be criminal charges. Portia believes it would be worthwhile to be free from Drew's control. She explains that Drew wants her to depict Michael as an opioid addict. This has to cease. She cannot breach her medical ethics again. Curtis claims she only did what she needed to do the last few times. She claims she is exhausted and done with it. I'm not his minion. I am reclaiming my power. Drew Kane can go straight to hell, she declares. He is concerned about her abandoning her career and the consequences for Trina. She will blame herself for this, and her mother may go to prison. She laments that the situation is suffocating and that she needs to find a means to cope with herself. She is unwilling to give up who she is for Drew. He believes she's amazing, but advises her to be strategic about it. She cannot retract a confession to the medical board. The serenity of the forest seemed to greet her as she drove farther into the twisting backroads outside of Port Charles. Willow gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles whitening against the leather, and the two car seats behind her reminded her of what she was fighting for: her children. Wiley was sleeping, his head softly turned to the side, while Amelia was still too young to understand anything, snoozing with a pacifier in her lips. But Willow understood. She knew all too well. Leaving had not been part of the plan. Not really. But then again, nothing in the previous few months had gone according to plan. Her world had been a succession of compromises and silent sacrifices since her illness, transplant, and Drew's gradual integration into the life she thought she was reconstructing. Drew had initially been a source of comfort, strong, solid, and gentle in the midst of such mayhem. He had helped to keep her together while everything else was coming apart. But then the fractures started to appear. What began as a friendship based on mutual loss and survival has evolved into something far more domineering. Drew was neither violent nor loud. He was simply persistent, always present, constantly reminding her of what she owed. He had assisted her through her rehabilitation, managed things with Wiley, and attempted to become a father figure to Amelia. And as Michael became more preoccupied with work and Corinthos' family entanglements, Drew slipped into the holes in their marriage. Willow attempted to convince herself she was dreaming things, that Drew wasn't gradually taking over. Then came the strain, the arguments. His possessiveness is veiled as care. He did not appreciate her going to Michael's side of the family without checking in. He began making decisions concerning the children without consulting her. And when she pushed back, he became irritated, accusing her of being ungrateful and unable to recognize what he had done for her. Then came the final blow. Everything detonated just days ago. She'd been firm, possibly for the first time in a long. She told Drew that he wasn't her partner, that she didn't want him to make decisions about the kids anymore, and that he needed to step aside and allow her find her own way. He'd laughed. Not viciously, but in a way that terrified her more than yelling would. It was the laugh of a man who believed he had perfect control. The next day he submitted a petition for temporary custody, citing her mental health, previous illness, and emotional instability. Willow couldn't believe it. This was someone who had seen her lying in a hospital bed, frail and dying. This was someone she had previously trusted. So suddenly she was gone. She only took enough to get by for a few weeks. The cabin was not even in her name. It belonged to a friend of a friend and was tucked away deep in the trees, with scarcely any mobile coverage. But it was safe. No media, no court notices, and no Drew. Just her and the kids. The first night was very difficult. She hardly slept. Every tiny creak made her heart race, and every rustle of wind in the woods set her on edge. But she kept convincing herself she had done the right thing. She was not snatching her children. She was protecting them. She was their mother. She had the right to be terrified, the right to step away. Wiley awoke crying that night. He didn't understand why they weren't at home, or why Daddy wasn't present. She held him for hours, reciting stories in his ear about magnificent forests, brave little boys, and strong-hearted mothers who built their lives on courage. He did not ask many questions after that. Children adjust to new realities more quickly than adults. During the day, Willow tried to maintain a normal routine. She made pancakes on a small cast iron pan, read books to Wiley by the fire, and let him explore the neighboring wooded paths. She made sure Amelia took her naps and fed her with gentle love. She was more focused than she had been in months. There were no distractions, no hospital visits or looming court dates, only her children and the wind whispering through the pine trees. However, the peace was a delicate one. She realized it couldn't last forever. Michael would find out eventually. Perhaps he already had. Part of her grieved at the notion of how he must be feeling. Confused, angry, and devastated. He wasn't sure what Drew was capable of. Not yet. She didn't want to bring him back into the pandemonium. That is why she had not phoned. Not yet. She wasn't prepared to explain how everything happened so rapidly. How Drew became someone she couldn't trust. She was afraid the court system would not support her, especially with Drew's spotless reputation and the Corinthos name hovering in the background. She understood how things worked in Port Charles. The public's perception was everything. One afternoon it started raining. A gentle, steady drizzle saturated the trees and discolored the wood on the cabin's porch. Willow stood by the window, rocking Amelia in her arms and watching the swirls in the puddles on the gravel road. She wondered whether this would be their new reality. On the run, living in dread, hiding from a man who had claimed to love her. But the terror was never limited to Drew. It was also about herself, about who she would become. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman who stared back. She had always been tough and resilient, a survivor, but she had transformed into something quite else. A mother at the edge, a lady fighting not only for custody, but also for clarification. By the 7th day, she had detected changes in the children. Wiley stopped asking when they were going home. He began referring to the cottage as our hideout, and fabricated fantasies about them being spies or superheroes. Amelia cooed happily as Willow sang to her. The calm of the woods became a lullaby, a beat to grasp onto. Willow gave herself a little smile. But she understood she needed a plan. She couldn't hide forever. Someone would eventually come to look. Perhaps the cops. Perhaps Michael. Perhaps Drew himself. And when it happened, she needed to be prepared. She began putting down notes, timelines, and memories. She printed screenshots of Drew's text messages and audio recordings, which he had no idea she had saved. She was building a case quietly and deliberately. A mother's evidence. Her truth. She didn't know what would happen next. She wasn't sure if she'd end herself back in court or arrested. But she knew one thing. She couldn't go back to silence. Not anymore. One night, after putting the kids to bed, she strolled out onto the porch, wrapped in a blanket, and gazed at the stars. The woodland was calm and peaceful, but she could feel a storm rising beneath her ribcage. Not out of fear but with purpose. She didn't come to the cottage to hide. Not really. She had remembered who she was before everything broke apart. She was more than just a patient. More than a pawn in someone else's custody dispute. She was Willow. A mother. A fighter. And when the time came, she would stand in front of any judge or courtroom and tell the truth. Not only for herself but for her children. The cabin would not be home indefinitely. But that was enough for now. A temporary refuge. A breathing gap. A gentle reminder that she still had options. She would depart once she was ready. Upon her terms. Not Drew's. But the court's. Hers. And once she did, the entire globe would hear her voice. Loud and clear. Willow Tate's environment has been everything from quiet recently. After a flurry of tragedy, secrets, survival, and betrayal, her emotional foundation has been completely rocked. And now that the dust has cleared in some ways, with Nina's deception exposed and Michael gradually regaining her trust, a new question quietly looms in Port Charles. Is Willow on the verge of crossing a new line in her personal life? The man at the center of the rumor is none other than Isaiah, a newcomer whose calm power and deep integrity have already elicited more than one meaningful glance from Willow. Fans are ecstatic, and rightfully so, because when it comes to Willow, love never happens without drama, heartache, or seismic consequences. Isaiah entered Port Charles quietly, but his presence is already felt. He's not a loud man who makes grand gestures or inserts himself into family issues, but his calm attitude and quiet charisma stand in stark contrast to the tumult that frequently surrounds the Corinthos clan. He's someone who listens more than he speaks, and he doesn't have to brag about his value since it softly shines through. Willow, damaged and worn from years of betrayal and grief, has taken notice. Their bond isn't explosive yet. However, the gradual burn is precisely what makes it so hazardous. Isaiah's grounded vibe is soothing, and it has the potential to become compelling over time. Despite his recent progress and devotion to redemption, Michael has yet to truly comprehend what he has caused Willow to endure. His campaign against Sunny consumed him, leaving her emotionally abandoned on several occasions. While he was preoccupied with defending his family, seeking justice, and concealing secrets from the girl he professed to love, Willow was fighting for her life, both physically and mentally. And despite their efforts to reconcile, something remains split. Willow is still wearing her mask. She smiles and plays the devoted wife and mother, but she is not fully present. Her heart, bruised by Michael's mistakes, has created walls that even he can't fully penetrate again. Isaiah didn't come to Port Charles to be someone's rebound, but fate doesn't always wait for the right time. He and Willow originally met at a hospital charity event. He was assisting with community outreach, and she was present in her capacity as a nurse and patient advocate. Their chat was brief but filled with implicit understanding. Two people who have experienced loss and know how to handle it gracefully. Since then, their paths have crossed more frequently, both professionally and casually, and Willow has found herself thinking about him long after they have parted ways. It is not infidelity yet. However, it is near to emotional curiosity, which is frequently the source of difficulty. Willow and Isaiah's potential is appealing, because it is not motivated by desire or recklessness. It would be based on a silent need, a need for serenity and honesty that Willow hasn't felt in years. And Isaiah, whose past is unknown to many in town, carries himself like someone who understands patience and agony. He doesn't press her or flirt in the typical sense, but when he speaks, his words are like anchors. He sees her in a way Michael hasn't lately, and Willow is starting to realize how lovely that feels. Still, it would not be an easy move. Willow's loyalty is strong, perhaps even too strong. She's battled hard to keep her family together, and the last thing she wants to do is inflict additional pain on her children. Walking away from Michael would involve more than simply ending the marriage. It would mean changing the future she had strived for. But if that future no longer provides her calm, how long can she continue to pretend? There's also the issue of Sunny. With tensions between Sunny and Michael only beginning to melt, and Nina being completely removed from Willow's life, any change in Willow's romantic life could have far-reaching consequences. Isaiah, with all his prudence, may not be aware of the battleground he is about to enter. Falling for someone from the Corinthos family is more than simply a love tale. It's a political and emotional minefield. One false move and Isaiah may find himself excluded or worse, dragged into rivalries he never wanted. Carly, too, would not be indifferent to this change. She's always had mixed thoughts about Willow, particularly regarding her allegiance during Nina's epic betrayal. Carly may officially back Willow, but if Willow begins to stray emotionally, especially with someone like Isaiah, who has no connection to the Corinthos dynasty, Carly may become chilly quickly. Willow may become alone in ways she has never experienced before. Then there's the question of what Isaiah desires. He may be drawn to Willow, but is he ready for the storm that awaits her? She is unfailingly compassionate, altruistic, and noble. But she is also a woman caught up in years of emotional pain, familial turmoil, and high-stakes connections. Loving Willow entails carrying her burdens as well, which not every guy is capable of doing. If Isaiah is sincere about her, he will need more than admiration. He will also need resilience. The smoldering burn between them could ignite at any time. Perhaps it will begin with something small. A reassuring moment in the hospital break room, a long talk under the stars, or a shared secret that neither of them meant to reveal. Willow might fight it at first. She isn't one to betray easily. But the anguish inside her, the ache of being unnoticed, unheard, and emotionally unprotected for so long, could draw her to Isaiah in a moment of vulnerability. And once that line is crossed, there is no going back. Michael will not be blind to it indefinitely. He can already feel a remoteness in Willow that has nothing to do with Nina or the past. If he delves deeper, he may discover that Isaiah has unintentionally become a thorn in their marriage. Michael, who is overly protective, may respond adversely. Whether it's possessiveness or remorse, his reaction might either draw Willow in or push her away. If Michael confronts Isaiah directly, sparks may fly in unexpected ways, and Port Charles may find itself in the midst of another gathering storm. Willow could still use prudence. She has done this previously. She is the sort to give up her own desires for the sake of stability. But the issue remains. How long can she continue to deny herself what she really needs? If Isaiah continues to provide her with the presence and stability she has been seeking, she may find it impossible to resist. What about the impact if all becomes public? Despite everything Willow had gone through, she would be seen as disloyal and even selfish. But perhaps that's what makes this story so compelling. Perhaps it's time for Willow to stop sacrificing herself for looks, and instead pursue the peace she deserves. The next several weeks in Port Charles could be key. A shared view across a hospital corridor. A protective gesture that moves Willow's heart. A near kiss that almost crosses the line, or one that eventually does. The build-up has already begun, even if the characters are unaware of it. And if Willow gives in to her emotions, Port Charles will never be the same again. In the end, whether Willow really hooks up with Isaiah or just keeps towing the line, the emotional heart of this possible relationship is evident. It represents more than just passion. It stands for healing, safety, and honesty. Something she'd been wanting for a long time. And if she dares to seek for it, she may finally be able to live a life based on genuine, present love rather than obligation or fear. Of course, love in Port Charles is never simple. Even if Willow and Isaiah start something, they'll have to struggle to keep it going in the face of anger, gossip, and the constant tug of the past. But just maybe this is a struggle worth fighting. Because for once Willow may be choosing for herself, not for Michael, Wiley, or the family legacy, but for the woman she is becoming. And that might change everything.